The people who live here say these kinds of killings happen every day in Syria. Since the Hula massacre on May 25th, there have been at least 4 other mass killings, claiming more than 200 lives. Activists say many will go unreported or only come to light later. The opposition says it's one of the reasons the Syrian government has given so little access to international journalists. Making things worse, the UN says observers have in many instances been prevented from carrying out their investigations.
It has been 4 days now since Syrian anti-aircraft artillery brought down a Turkish military jet Syria said had penetrated its territorial airspace. Syria's foreign ministry spokesman says its air defences had to react immediately to the Turkish fighter jet flying at 100 meters altitude in what was a clear breach of Syrian sovereignty. He told at a news conference that the jet, an F-4 Phantom, was downed by anti-aircraft fire, not by a radar-guided missile.
The holes that appeared on the tail of the plane showed that it was really shot by a land cannon and not by missiles. If the aircraft was above international waters, they would have used the missiles, and not a land aircraft again whose maximum amplitude is 2.5 kilometers.
But Turkey says the incident will not go unpunished, but it does not intend to go to war over it. Deputy Prime Minister Bülent Arınç said Turkey would protect itself.
We're doing everything that we can to protect our rights in the framework of international law. But everyone should know that this action will not go unpunished and will have consequences. But we have no other way than using the arguments of international law as Turkey being a state of law.
On Monday, Turkey also said that Syrian forces had fired at a second Turkish plane, which was searching for the downed F-4 fighter jet, but the second plane was not being down. This worsens the already tense relations between the two sides. Ian McKinnon, CCTV.
Won the Euros 4 years ago, then they won the World Cup in South Africa for the first time ever, and now they've won the Euros again. No nation has ever done that before.
Okay, everyone in this crowd is aware of that. The game has just ended. Let me show you this crowd. They are certainly aware of that. And we've been out here 4 years ago for Euro 2008 and 2 years ago for the World Cup. There was probably more confidence in the World Cup than for this tournament because of the way they played at the beginning. But the coach, Vicente Bosquez, has taken this team from less to more, each game getting better and better. And you can see what happened now. This rather unexpected 4-0 win over Italy. Patrick.
The NLA hasn't been uprooted. We're still as one, and we hold the 5 borders. But we wanted to avoid a bloodbath. That's why we chose to retreat from the cities. But we're getting ready to confront the armed groups on the terrain where there are no civilians that have been killed.
Who supports these armed groups that now control Kidal, Timbuktu, and Gao? You stated in a communique just a few days ago that officers from a neighboring country had been seen in the region with members of Ansar Dine, ACME, and Mujahid. What country are you referring to exactly?
I can't tell you that, but we know that several allies of Mali are doing all they can to crush the independence of Azawad.
Way to cheers this morning at NASA. Curiosity has made it to Mars.
The rover that traveled more than 350 million miles over more than 8 months set down on the red planet in really spectacular fashion this morning. One NASA scientist calls it the Super Bowl of planetary expedition. Imagine that. Wow. A $2.5 billion adventure that could help unlock secrets to the solar system and whether Mars could ever have supported life.
A rover like Curiosity allows us to really, mankind reach out and touch the surface of another planet.
And scientists at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, as you can see, were overjoyed at word of the landing. A daring feat of declaration dubbed 7 minutes of terror. Now the nuclear-powered Armstrong spacecraft.
With those words and that step, Neil Armstrong achieved a kind of immortality. It was July 20th, 1969. 500 million people all over planet Earth watched in suspense as Apollo 11's fragile lunar lander touched down on the moon. Then Armstrong emerged to become the first human being to put his footprints on alien soil. Later, Armstrong spoke of the experience.
On the surface of the moon, I could look up and see the planet Earth, and it was very bright and very beautiful and very...
China's biggest power struggle for decades came to a head with the announcement that Bo Xilai was being expelled from the ruling Communist Party and charged with corruption, abuse of power, bribe-taking, and improper relations with women. Bo's fall began when allegations emerged that his wife, Gu Kai-lai, had murdered a British businessman, Neil Hayward, in November, and he had tried to cover it up. Gu was convicted of the crime in August, and Wang Lijun, Bo's former chief of police, was found guilty of other crimes stemming from the scandal a month later. Bo was suspended from his position in March. Until his expulsion, however, his fate had been unclear.
U.S. Ambassador to Libya, Christopher Stevens, was reported by our news agency Reuters as the U.S. national who has been killed on the attack on the U.S. consulate in Libya. Now, as far as America is concerned, they've confirmed that it is U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens who has been killed in that attack in Benghazi. It wasn't clear if the ambassador was in his car or the Libyan consulate when the attack took place. It was a rocket strike in which the U.S. ambassador was killed. The Libyan ambassador and 3 staff members have been killed when gunmen fired rockets at them. That's the official word coming in from the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. This has been confirmed to News 8.
Jersey and New York, the East Coast, the storm is pretty much played out. It was a big impact storm last night, and the thing that was remarkable about it, aside from the very low pressure that we had, was that it came in from east to west. I mean, most hurricanes and storms come somewhere along the coast. They parallel the coast, maybe even cross inland a little bit, but they don't take a direct perpendicular shot. And that's the reason why you see all the big problems going on in New York and New Jersey with the flooding waters from last night. As far as the current situation goes, the storm is weakening. It's sort of grinding its way through western Pennsylvania. And as it does so, all of that moisture is wrapping around, hitting cold air and making for a blizzard right now in West Virginia. So whereas it was a big flood and an inundation along the coast, it's a huge snowstorm inland.
Chavez has comfortably won the Venezuelan presidential elections, securing his 4th term in office. Mr. Chavez won 54.5% of the votes, ahead of rival candidate Enrique Capriles, who secured 45%. Chavez supporters took to the streets of the capital Caracas to celebrate the result. Speaking after the victory, Mr. Chavez said he wanted to promote discussion amongst his United Socialist Party and the opposition. To those who promote hate, to those who promote social poison, to those who are always trying to deny all the good things that happen in Venezuela, I invite them to dialogue, to debate, and to work together for Venezuela, for the Bolivarian Venezuela. Enrique Capriles, the man who was running against Mr. Chavez, was gracious in defeat.
Romney, at this time right now, we have made this projection so the president wins this battle for the White House. They're excited in Chicago, they're excited at Times Square in New York, they're watching all over the world right now. The president of the United States has been re-elected right now. Let's listen into some of the excitement.
The morning after the night before. Tuesday saw
saw tens of thousands of demonstrators take their protests to the doors of the official residence of President Mohamed Morsi. The Islamist leader was forced to leave the presidential palace as irate compatriots raged against his rule. Morsi unleashed a tidal wave of fury following his November 22nd decree. Riot police clashed with thousands of demonstrators outside the presidential palace and fired tear gas rounds into the crowd. 18 people suffered minor injuries. The chaos in the country looks set to spread as Morsi pushes ahead with plans to hold a referendum on a new constitution on December the 15th. The draft constitution has thrown up some human rights concerns, and independent TV channels and newspapers have gone on strike to protect press freedom. Morsi is now back at his desk, but for Egypt, it's far from business as usual.
A procession of power. Xi Jinping leads a new generation of Chinese leaders onto the world stage. Now General Secretary of the Communist Party and hardly under stress, the country on the rise. For Xi Jinping, a daunting responsibility.
We must always be of one heart and mind with the people, share will and woe with them, make concerted and hard efforts, attend to our duties day and night.
In a speech outlining his vision for the country, he praised China's people. He spoke of their love of life, of hard work, and the value of education. He vowed to fulfill the party's mission to, quote, renew China. But first, he must renew the party itself from the scourge of corruption.
There are many pressing problems within the party that need to be resolved. Problems among our party members and cadres of corruption, taking bribes, being out of touch with the people, undue emphasis on formalities and bureaucratism must be addressed with great efforts. The whole party must be vigilant against them.
From revolution to power, Xi Jinping's roots are in the Communist Party. His father, a revolutionary hero, Xi is known as a princeling. Analysts say he will always put the party first.
For the second time in 2 days, the media were among those targeted for bombardment. The bombing in the heart of Gaza City was captured on a number of live cameras filming the skyline. The building hit is the base for Arab and international television stations. Israel has described it as a Hamas facility. When rescuers arrived, it was clear a whole floor of the tower block had been blown out. Anyone in that part of the building would have had little chance of survival. Hours earlier, the UN Secretary-General called for an immediate ceasefire. But for now, Israel is not listening. The relentless bombing continues day and night. This Palestinian Security Forces compound targeted for the second time in 24 hours. We are told there were no fighters present, but a child was killed by shrapnel from the blast. Among the other places hit, a sports stadium. A stand in the sports centre seems to have been the target, but widespread damage was caused to homes nearby. The residents, dazed and frightened, were led from the rubble. With such a sustained assault now in its 6th day, in one of the most densely populated places on Earth, there really is nowhere that's safe. As Israel's bombardment continues, the country's leaders are said to be close to the time when they will decide whether to launch a ground invasion or whether to agree to a truce. There are believed to be senior leaders supporting both courses of action. The people of Gaza are left to wait and pray that the terrifying onslaught will end.
The meetings are
retreated with tear gas and water cannons from these protesters. But they're still around, regrouping in different areas around government compounds, demanding justice.
It's not just a girl who got raped, it's the whole nation is getting raped. We are not safe. In Metro also, we are not safe.
This began when a 23-year-old medical student was attacked and gang-raped on a bus last week. She's now in hospital, in critical condition. Police in New Delhi have arrested all 6 men accused of raping her. But as the daily protests continue, the government has been under increasing pressure to do more. The Home Minister has spoken to the police investigating the case and briefed the Prime Minister on Saturday. A parliamentary committee will discuss laws concerning rape next week. And 5 fast-track courts have been announced to address the tens of thousands of rape cases that are still pending.
The signs of their ordeal clear across their battered faces and bodies. These are some of the survivors of Typhoon Bopha. Many of these people fought their way free or were pulled from the thick layers of mud that swamped their homes. But many of their loved ones did not make it out.
A coconut tree fell down and it hit him on the head.
At its peak, Typhoon Bopha lashed the southern island of Mindanao with wind gusts of up to 210 kilometers per hour. It knocked out power in 2 provinces and wrecked hundreds of homes. While the government warned its people to take preventative measures, officials accept that message didn't get through to many people in the more isolated areas. More than half of the dead were from an area near an army outpost in Compostela Valley province in southern Mindanao, engulfed in flash floods and mudslides. Other victims along coastal areas in the Davao Oriental province were crushed by fallen trees or trapped in their collapsed homes. For now, the survivors are recovering from their trauma in makeshift shelters. 60,000 people are believed to be accommodated in places like these. And while Typhoon Bopha weakened overnight, it's still creating havoc. Heavy rain and wind is pummeling the western Palawan province as the storm makes its way out to the South China Sea. Miriam Nahond, Al Jazeera.